Story 1. I was 24, and she was 36. Family friend. I messaged her on Facebook spontaneously, and she asked what was for breakfast. I told her chorizo and eggs, and she asked if she could join. I agreed. The relationship lasted 10 years. Story 2. I went to a bar with my mother when I was 23. The door attendant asked me for my number. He was good-looking and in great shape, but obviously much older than me. He was 37. I gave it a shot. We dated for 8 months. He seemed great, had a day job working with disabled people, was very stable, good with money, even-tempered and health-conscious. He was the biggest cheater ever. Story 3. I was an ex-coworker. I did some computer work for her one day. That day turned into my only, like the start of an adult film hookup. I was working on her MacBook, and she mentioned her Photos app was very slow. I opened the app and saw tons of personal selfies. I looked away, and she just smiled and said she had been having some fun recently. I decided to be brave and asked, "So, do you want to hook up?" Narrator, she did, in fact, want to hook up. She was about 10 years older, but she kept in shape and much fun was had for a few months. Story 4. My boyfriend was 17 years younger. I was 50 at the time. He was and is one of the sweetest humans I have ever met. He was getting over a divorce when we met. I had a small business, a home, and a community I loved. He wanted to move back to the Colorado mountains and live in a cabin. He wanted to marry me and believed we would be happy in the wilderness. Sigh. No, we still text regularly. He always tells me he still loves me. To be honest, I love him too. But a woman in her 70s is not a good match for a healthy man in his 50s, and I am smart enough to know that. Story 5. I met a woman on Tinder who is 10 years older than me. I am 34 and she is 44. Felt weird at first, but I get along with her better than any of my previous partners. Age is just a number. Story 6. Met online in a massively multiplayer online game. Our play styles complemented each other, so we started grouping together every time we were both online. The more we grouped, the more we talked. Real-life subjects started coming up more and more. The more we learned about each other, the more attracted we became to each other. We became very close. It took 2 years to realize there was a 20-year age difference between us. We decided to meet up in real life. Once we were together, age didn't matter at all. That relationship lasted 8 years and only ended because both of us were too stubborn to move away from our respective families. This was all before voice chat was available in massively multiplayer online games, or online at all. Story 7. She was 11 years older than me. She was my waitress. I took her home that night. Story 8. I am 28 years old and she is 43. We met online and are currently friends with benefits. We have fun times together. Story 9. When I was in high school, a friend's mother got divorced. We had a brief relationship. It should not have happened, and if anyone had found out, she would have been in a lot of legal trouble. It had a profound effect on my ability to have normal relationships, including both sexual and platonic relationships. I learned to hide relationships and to avoid feeling comfortable talking about them. It also negatively affected my relationship with my family because they did not know and did not understand my troubled behavior at that time. This has also led to me mostly making inappropriate or poor choices in partners. Story 10. When I was a teenager, I got involved with a hobby that peaked in popularity around the time I was born. In college, about 30 years ago, I started attending conventions and meeting other enthusiasts in person. Most of them were 15 to 20 years older than me. I also became part of an online community. Almost all of my friends as an adult came from this same hobby. Some people treated me as a peer, others as a little sister hanging around. A group of us traveled to a particular event. My husband was a friend of the people I was traveling with. It was like I didn't meet a stranger, but a trusted, respected member of our community. When we met, I was 21 and he was 40. We got together a year later. Now we are 49 and 68, and we just celebrated our 22nd anniversary. The first other enthusiast I met was when I was 16 and he was 29. He lent me books and other media. We spent a lot of time together in public, and he gave me rides a couple of times. Looking back, it was completely appropriate, but I was lucky. We are still in touch. Story 11. I went to see his band play with a friend of mine, and she made us go up and talk to them. He definitely did not know how young I was. Dark dive bar. I had a lot of makeup on, and I am tall. We added each other on social media, then met up a few times and got along very well. I made sure he was not a creep. Now we are married. 11-year age difference. Story 12. Met him in a mental hospital. We were both patients. Obviously, it was a very bad idea. Story 13. I had a fantastic relationship with a woman a little over 20 years older than me when I was in my early to mid-20s. She was the older sister of an older colleague that I had become friends with in my first job out of university. I met her out with him one night and we clicked. That night, it started. I was reasonably fresh out of a taxing relationship, my first serious girlfriend, who I had been with for most of university. This really wonderful lady was very keen to get out of a dead bedroom marriage on its last legs. We saw each other sporadically when opportunity allowed over the next 2 or 3 years until I began a serious relationship with another girlfriend. Subsequently, we still saw each other occasionally at social occasions over the next 15 years before losing touch a bit. She became less healthy in her 60s and went out less. I still heard of her from her brother, who I remained good friends with, and always asked after her, as she did me. Well wishes were always exchanged through him both ways. I am 54 now, and sadly she died of cancer a couple of years ago. I wish I had seen her again before she passed. We always had a very special place in our hearts for each other. Story 14. I met her on America Online. I was 18 and she was 55. Goddamn, that was fun. She had a nice apartment down by the lake. That was one of the most enjoyable times in my life. Story 15. Being 40 with a 28-year-old girlfriend was fun. We met at work and hit it off, but after trying a relationship, we were just too far apart mentally. I do not want a partner I have to explain everything to, feeling like I am being overbearing. But they are all like, no, that is fine. Tell me what to do. I want someone to tell me what to do and maybe have a little argument now and then if we do not agree. Story 16. Chatted her up at the club and went from there. I am 25. She is 39. I balanced it by having a girlfriend who is 13 years younger recently. Edit. The two relationships are nearly 20 years apart. I was not dating a 12-year-old. Story 17. I am 30 years old and he is 48. We have been together for 2 years. I met him on Grindr as a casual hookup, and we fell in love with each other. I left my job and moved with him 400 kilometers away from home. I have never been happier. Story 18. I am 57 and he is 39. He found me online. 18 years later, we are still going strong. Story 19. When I was 43 years old and newly out of a long-term relationship, I had a couple of short relationships a few months apart, slightly more than flings, with a 27-year-old and a 29-year-old. The 27-year-old was long distance, and we met because we had mutual friends on social media. She specifically messaged me to flirt. It ended because of the long distance. No harm, no foul. We still are slightly in touch. The 29-year-old I met on a dating app and was a little fast to push for the boyfriend/girlfriend label. I broke it off because, frankly, I eventually got the impression that she was not single and I was her side partner. Both admitted to having a thing for older men, and neither lasted long enough for any age gap issues to arise. About 6 months later, I met a woman 5 years older than me. We have been together 6 years and married for 1. Story 20. I was 22, and she was in her late 50s. We met at work. I liked her smile and long hair. She liked that I was not her husband. Story 21. When I was 17, I slept with the woman who worked at the car dealership where I bought my first car. She was 31 and married at that time, which I did not know. She was living with a friend, and we were kind of seeing each other. Then one day there was a brand new man's watch in her room, clearly a gift she was going to give to someone. Foolishly, I thought it might be for me, but she explained that it was for her husband. They were trying to reconcile, so we could not see each other anymore. It was good because I hated that watch anyway. Story 22. Met at work. She was 38. I was 24. Both female. Thought she was straight, so did she. We were friends. I always fancied her, but didn't know she felt the same. It only took 3.5 years before she told me how she felt, and we have been together ever since. Best relationship I have ever had. She is my best mate and the most wonderful person I have ever met. Age doesn't really matter. We are just people who fell in love. Story 23. I was a youthful 21 and worked in a local pub. She was a 46-year-old lady who drank there on the weekends. She made it very well known that she fancied me. One day, I had finished my shift at 4 p.m. in time for an England football match and had ordered a pint. At that point, she came over and told me again that she found me attractive. I thanked her and went outside for a smoke. While I was outside, she came out and asked for a lighter. I obliged. She lit her cigarette, kissed me, and asked me to go back to her place. I thought about it for 10 seconds and agreed. I didn't even finish my pint before jumping in her car. We went back, and I had the best experience I ever had. We showered together and made love intensely. Another time, I was approached by someone at a work event, and we were intimate in the cellar of the venue where we were drinking. She knew the code to open the cellar door. It was a bit chilly in there, but naughty fun was had over the kegs. This lady was only older than me by a few years. I'd go on, but this isn't a forum for explicit stories. Story 24. I was 25, and she was 36. We met on World of Warcraft, and she lived half the country away in the United States. We were about 950 miles, or 1,528 kilometers, apart. It started with just liking each other's company and ended with me flying out to her state for Christmas. All of this began in 2005. We had our 10th wedding anniversary this year. Story 25. I am 28 and she is 42. We are having a baby girl next month and have been together for 2 years in January. She is the greatest partner I could have ever imagined, and she has 3 children who all love me. Story 26. I fell in love with her the second I saw her, and I have been hers ever since. It has not always been smooth and we have not always been together, but what matters to me is that I am going home to her in just a little while, 42 years after that first day. Story 27. I was 18. She was 46. She was an unhappy housewife who shopped where I worked. She flirted and I fell for it. She overwhelmed me. Story 28. I went back to school in the evening to get my college degree and met a woman who was doing the same. We started dating and hit it off. I was 27, and she was 9 years older at 36. We got married 2 years later and have been happily married for 38 years. Story 29. I was 26 and he was 43. I hung out with his niece, and he was recently divorced. My friend once told me I settled, and that's probably true, but I am lazy. If he hadn't pursued me, I probably never would have gotten married. We were married for 31 years until he passed away 2 years ago. I never regretted a single day. Story 30. I went to a social dance congress for salsa in her city. We met randomly through a common acquaintance, started dating within a month, and married a year later. We have 2 great kids, and she is about 20 years younger than me. It just happened. Story 31. 21-year difference. Lots in common. Our parents were the same age. She had many fine qualities. Conversations were very stimulating. Ultimately, though, she liked being mean, a Karen, if you will. I do not know why the haircut did not tip me off. I explained she had choices, but she chose meanness. That was the end of it. Story 32. A tale as old as time. I dated one older man and, in doing so, met friends and acquaintances through him who I later dated until I realized I was being used and removed myself from those circles. Story 33. I was 29, and this gorgeous woman in her 50s started chatting me up at the bar, trying to figure out which actor I looked like. We were both very drunk, and she said, "I'm going to masturbate to you later." I replied, "Take me home and you won't have to." We were intimate. I deleted her number, but I still changed my dating app age range when I got back to my home city. 50 to 55 has been a blast. Story 34. There's a 10-year age gap between us. It actually wasn't intentional at all. I was homeless at the time and he was basically a stranger. He invited me into his home, and I was terrified of him at first, but slowly I began to feel affection for him. We have been dating and living together for a year now. I have definitely grown to care for him, and initially I was not even attracted to him. I guess it is like that phrase, familiarity breeds affection. I know our whole relationship sounds crazy, which is why he has never told his family the details of how we met. I am not sure what story he told them, but he certainly did not say, I picked up this homeless girl, and we started dating. Story 35. She worked at a coffee shop down the street, and I saw her 2 to 3 times a week for several months. 2 weeks before she moved to another city and changed jobs. She asked if I wanted to hang out with her on a Friday night, because we had a good connection. When I came to pick her up after her Friday shift, she told me she was into me but wasn't really interested in being in a relationship as she wanted to focus on her university course. I agreed because she was a bit young for me. She was 22 and I was 34, and I did not want to date someone still in school. We were intimate all Friday night and Saturday morning. This continued for another weekend, and then she left for the city. We never exchanged our numbers or social media because we did not want to push it further. I have not heard from her since then. It was fun for what it was. Story 36. My husband is 20 years older than me. We worked together. He asked me out and I said no. We became friends and then best friends. Then I realized I was in love with him. We have been inseparable for almost a decade now. Story 37. I met him at work and had a crush on him, flirting here and there. I went to a party with coworkers who knew I liked him and tried inviting him. His friend, who was texting him, told me his age because he had lied, saying he was 25. I told him I was older too. We went on our first date and learned each other's real ages. I was 19 and he was 34. By then, we had fallen for each other and were together for 5 years. Story 38. Lost my virginity to an older woman who was the principal of the nearby girls' only school. She and I were great friends despite the age difference. And one day we ended up kissing while talking late into the night. She skipped school the next day and introduced me to the wonders of sex. That started me on a somewhat unhealthy attraction to strong married women who were popular and professionally successful. I'm dominant, so having these outwardly unreachable women available and relating to me was a huge thrill. Once they let their hair down, the sex was also amazing. Story 39. I met my husband at the age of 19. He was 37. He tried to kiss me and I said, no, you are too old. 5 years later, he hired me and we fell in love. We are still technically married, but he is an alcoholic and I moved out last year. We have been married 15 years and together for 19. We would still be together if not for his addiction. He is a great man, one of the smartest and sweetest I have ever met, but he loves alcohol more than me. Story 40. He was a regular at the place where I worked. He impressed me with things that people my age did not have yet. Now that I am looking back, how can a grown man in his 50s pursue a teenager? Never again. Story 41. He, aged 40, was a neighbor. I, female, 21 at the time, moved into the apartment next door. I honestly had no idea how it happened. We started hanging out casually, and he walked my dog for me a couple of times. Then he made a move and I went with it. Turned out to be really fun. It lasted for about 3 years on and off. Then he got remarried. Story 42. I met him at work almost 2 decades ago. He married someone and I married someone. We were at each other's weddings. My ex-husband and I were at his 2-year-old son's birthday party, and his ex-wife came to meet my first baby at my home. They got divorced 8 years ago, and I got divorced 5 years ago. We've been together for the last 4 years. Who would have thought is what we always say. Based on our age difference, and more specifically the age he is now, I wish I had given it a try 20 years ago. But I'll take it. Story 43. The biggest age gap I had was 11 years. When you hit it off, you hit it off. Age is just a number. When you really connect with someone, you hold on to that. Story 44. When I was 18, a friend of mine was chatting with an older lady at the bar, and we were commenting from across the dance floor. Then he pulled a face, stepped back, and came back over to us. When we asked him what was wrong, he said, "She said she's 46 and has a child. She's really old." The others agreed with him, but I thought she was quite attractive. I ended up dancing with her later that night, and she kept telling me how handsome I was, but I was too young for her. I joked that age is just a number and that I wasn't as innocent as I appeared. I did look young, though. One thing led to another, and after some kissing on the dance floor and a bit of touching, she mentioned that she lived nearby and invited me back. It was a passionate night as far as I can remember. She wasn't as tired or loose as I had been led to believe. She was full of energy and knew what she wanted. Her skills were impressive. When I woke in the morning, I didn't know where I was at first. It was light and there were many pictures around the room. I got up to use the bathroom, and when I returned, she was lying there with the blanket up to her neck, looking embarrassed. She awkwardly smiled and said, "Oh my goodness, you're so young." She didn't look as attractive as she did the night before, but she was still kind of cute. I told her she was not what I expected and had a bit of joking with her. She said her daughter would be back soon and she didn't want her to catch us. I understood, composed myself, went to the bathroom again, and she saw me out. I gave her an awkward kiss at the door and then walked about 20 minutes to the bus station. I never saw her again and never got her number. I was known as the mature woman hunter for months. Every older woman we saw out, the others would warn her and tell her to watch out for me. What idiots. Story 45. There was a 25-year age difference. I was 29, and he was 54. We had great sex, but he was a bit crazy. I still miss him. Story 46. Some of these answers are like, I was 40 and they were 30 when we met, and we have been married for 5 years. Or I was fresh out of high school at 18, and they were 46, but it is fine. I am so mature, and I am pregnant with their first child. Story 47. I was 20 and he was 58. We hit it off right away chatting online. We met in person after a month of talking, moved in together after 3 years, and got engaged after 5. We have been together for 6 years now, and I cannot imagine anyone making me happier than he does. Story 48. We originally met to get high together. Then he quickly became a friend with benefits. After that, a relationship started. I was 33 and he was 23. We had met online on an application. Story 49. A 43-year-old female and a 24-year-old male. He worked in a shop I often visited. He was interested, but I had no idea. After chatting for many months and getting along well, we arranged to go to a local beach since he was fairly new to the area and had not been there. After that, I realized he fancied me. I was very hesitant because I am technically old enough to be his mother. I initially turned him down, but he persevered, and I gave it a chance. 2.5 years later, we are still together. Story 50. I thought she was older. She thought I was younger. We laughed through the confusion, got married, had children, got divorced, and I regret everything except my children. An American love story. Story 51. I met the love of my life at a job I had in Washington, D.C., at the United States Information Agency newsroom as a typist. He was a 59-year-old journalist for The Voice of America. I was 21. I was instantly attracted to him. The intimacy was amazing. We kept seeing each other until I was in my 40s and moved out of state, but we stayed in touch over the years. He passed away in 2017 at 97 years old. I still miss him. Story 52. I was married at 21 to a 44-year-old man. We met through mutual friends on Instagram. We are now divorced. Story 53. She was 10 years younger than me, and she had obviously decided that we were going to get together. I say that because I honestly made no effort whatsoever to make it happen. It wasn't even on my mind. I don't mean that in a bragging way. I simply mean we had previously never really spoken much beyond hello. She was cute, intelligent, and funny, and 10 years younger than me. So I didn't make any move for her and didn't expect one in return. Some years before, she had dated the younger brother of a guy I went to school with. We had a brief, nodding knowledge of each other and some mutual acquaintances. But then her relationship ended and I didn't see her around anymore. Fast forward several years. I was in a pub with a group of friends and suddenly bumped into her. She was with her own group of friends but stopped to say hello. I bought her a drink and we talked about the people we knew or had known, just having a good laugh together until her friends drifted over. At the end of the night, our two groups left the pub and split up in search of various post-beer snacks. Somehow, it ended up just me and her at my place. As I said, decisions had been made. We were together for over 8 years and remained good friends for some years afterward. Story 54. I was 20. He was 42. We met because we were cast as the romantic love interests in a community theater musical. We dated for over a year in a genuine, loving relationship, but it ended because he kept cheating in emotional and sometimes physical ways that showed we were not mentally compatible at that time. We reconnected as friends a few years later and have remained very good friends. This was 18 years ago. Story 55. I dated a woman 15 years younger than me for a while. I am in my early 50s. I think I overcompensated trying to show that I still had it when it came to sex. She was actually worn out and asked if we could take more breaks. Good times. Story 56. Work. I was 22 and he was 37. It was a terrible experience overall. He was a predator and I did not know at the time. Story 57. We met online as friends and it developed over time. We are married now. Story 58. They liked the way I spoke to them during a training session. Story 59. Had a few relationships with older women when I was in my early to mid-20s. 2 of them were in their 40s and 1 was in her 50s. Great times, learned a lot sexually and gained confidence. They would be in their 80s now, pushing 90 or have passed away. Wonderful women, all of them. Story 60. 10-year difference. Not too large of an age gap, I hope. Married at 43 and 33 years old. We both had been married to different people and had lost our spouses to cancer. We met at church and connected quickly. We did not say it out loud, but after our first meeting, we were pretty sure about each other. There were many grins and smiles from friends who were watching us and knew we would be well suited for each other. I proposed within 2 months and, barely 4 months later, we were married. I adopted her daughter and we had a son. That was just over 20 very happy years ago. Story 61. Drunken one-night stand. She was 44 and I was 24. She graduated high school with my mother. Story 62. I, a 33-year-old female at the time, was recently divorced from my husband. A new coworker who was 22 sat next to me. We worked side by side for about a year, cracking jokes and bonding over our shared sense of humor. We were part of a group of work friends who often did activities on weekends. After 2 years, we became intimate one night, and he said he did not want to stop. We dated for 5 years and lived together for 4 years. He wanted children, but I did not want another baby at 35, so we split. Story 63. I was 24 years old and she was a 51-year-old divorcee. She always came into my job asking about what she should cook or which meat was the most tender because I'm a butcher. We always had good conversations, and I thought she was attractive but felt I had no chance because there was no way she didn't have something going on. One day, we were dreadfully slow at work, and she showed up late. She mentioned that her son had moved away and she had nobody to help her put her TV stand together. I offered to help, she agreed, and we exchanged numbers. I put it together after work. Nothing happened, but she appreciated it. A week later, she called me again and asked if I could set up her soundbar and treadmill. I obliged. When I came over, I assembled both for her. She offered me a drink and we each had about 3. I made a move. I absolutely wouldn't have done it if I was sober. She laughed and asked, "What took you so long?" That went on for about 3 years until she started dating and eventually remarried. She still occasionally asks how I'm doing. A nice lady. Fond memories. Story 64. I was 23, and she was 53. She was my neighbor. My roommate invited her to a party with us one time, and after that, she always bought us beer and snacks. I hung out at her house one night, got pretty drunk, and made out with her. She invited me to go upstairs, but I was too drunk. We hooked up for real a couple of days later. We hooked up multiple times over the years, but were never boyfriend and girlfriend. It was fun. Story 65. I was 16, and he was 25 when I was homeless and moved in with him after the tragic death of my first boyfriend. I thought it was okay because we got married when I was 23 and had children. It was not okay. It should not have happened. Story 66. I started a job as an intern. He was the resident doctor. I was 25 and he was 46. We got to know each other while working together and had great chemistry. We dated for about 5 years. But sadly, it didn't work out because we were in different places in life. I miss our conversations. We could talk for hours. He taught me so much in my career and life in general. I am very grateful to him and for that relationship. Story 67. I was a jaded child and he was not appropriate with minors, I guess. Story 68. I was 19 and she was in her early 40s. She was the wife of my dad's friend. She found me extremely handsome and was very vocal about it the moment she saw me. She met me once when I was 5 during a weekend visit. I did not remember her. It was incredible, passionate intimacy. It was a remarkable summer. Story 69. Both times at work, I did not seek them. They both came to me. Very fun times. Story 70. I was 21, working as a bouncer at a nightclub. A very good-looking 38-year-old police officer came in for a walkthrough. I introduced myself. It did not last very long. I was just getting over a breakup, and she was looking for something I was not able to give. Story 71. Met a woman on a long train ride home from a family gathering. She was by herself at a small 2-person table in the dining car, and I asked if I could sit there. I wasn't even planning to try anything. I actually thought another woman in the same dining car was attractive, but we started talking. I was 32, and I think she was 40. Our conversation turned to dating, relationships, and hookups. Somehow, the woman I had been checking out came up and she looked over at her, who had no idea we were talking about her, and told me all the reasons I didn't want any of that. The conversation flowed, more flirting happened, and then she playfully and seductively said something about, "Since you've been eye-contacting me this whole time." I asked, "Have I?" And once she said that, I definitely started eye-contacting her. She was very attractive, with a killer body. I think she was a yoga instructor. The conversation then shifted more to us, and heavier flirting followed. As we got close to our station, we went back to our respective cars. But on the way, I stopped between cars, pulled her close, and we made out heavily until we had to get back to our seats to gather our things. We got off the train at the same station and made out more in the station, with very explicit whispers about what we wanted to do to each other and an invitation to my place. She said she didn't want to do that night, the same night she met me, but gave me her number and suggested another night. Not long after I got home, she texted me saying how exciting it was and, "I want you inside me." She got that many times over the next few months. I'm not sure we ever hung out anywhere but my apartment, and even when she said, "I don't want to have sex tonight," and I respected that, she usually had us undressed within about 30 minutes at the latest. She was a lot of fun, very skilled in bed, and excellent at communicating. I think I improved because of her suggestions. After a while, it fizzled. We weren't looking for a serious relationship together, and she met a man and a woman she wanted to date. She was polyamorous, and I was not, so we parted amicably. Those were some fun months, though. Story 72. I was 21, he was 34 and freshly divorced at the time we met through some mutual friends. I found him unbearably hot, smart, funny, sarcastic, and even though I am a shy and introverted person, I knew I had to do something because he was not going to. So I tried to be in all the places I knew he would be, at parties and so on. He was always very polite but curt, and I started to feel like it was never going to happen. I promised myself I would give it one last try, and that was it. Even though I was already falling for him hard. We were at a bonfire with about 20 people, and he was sitting on a blanket, further away from everyone, seeming lost in thought. I thought that was my chance and went to sit beside him, inching closer. Here is how the conversation went after a bit of idle chit-chat. Him, "Hey, I am sorry if this may seem impolite, but just how old are you?" Me, "I am 21. Him, almost screaming, "Oh, thank God." Turns out he thought I was 16 or 17 and was completely scared out of his mind. He did not ask any of our mutual friends about my age because he thought it would be weird asking about a 16-year-old girl. He later confessed that he thought 21 was not that much better, but at least it was legal. Anyway, long story short, we have been married for 20 years, have a house, cars, and careers, and I still think he is the hottest human to ever walk the earth. Story 73. At 24, she was 39. I kissed her in the lounge at a bar, and she said she would never sleep with me. She took me to her apartment that night. We are still friends, and we are both in relationships with other people. Story 74. Notice how most of these stories involve men dating older women. That is because when an older man dates a much younger woman, it is usually not considered creepy. Much older men dating younger women is considered strange. Story 75. 14-year age gap. I was a bored college student and went on the early internet looking for novelty. I met a local person and we hit it off. I was 19, she was 33. I graduated at age 20 and moved in with her. Long story short, we are planning a cruise next summer to celebrate 25 years together. It can work just fine depending on the relationship and the personalities. Story 76. We saw each other. We fell in love. We married. We had children. We loved. He died and left me behind. Story 77. I went to a house party when I was 19. I ended up having sex with the host's 42-year-old aunt, who was very attractive. I do not know how I managed it. I climaxed in about 2 minutes, and she finished me off orally. It was a great experience. Story 78. I was 25 and she was in her 50s. It just happened. I am into bigger hippie girls with a lot of hair. She was into younger men who liked older women. In my experience, older, thicker women are much better to be around, happier, and better in bed. Many men do not admit it, but they know it when they have experienced it. Older women and bigger women are better at many things. Egos often hide men's true feelings. Story 79. He texted me on OkCupid and convinced me to go out with him and at least give him a chance. I was 46 and he was 26. We have been dating for 7 years now. Story 80. My grandparents, my dad's parents, had an age gap of 16 years. My grandfather worked on his family's farm, and in 1934, they met while making deliveries for their family farms. They stopped to rest and met each other. They were married in 1936, the year my grandmother turned 20 and my grandfather turned 36. They remained married until my grandfather's passing. In 2014, when I asked my grandmother the day before my wedding what the secret to a long marriage like hers was, she simply smiled and told me, "My dearest granddaughter, there is no secret. The best wisdom I can share is to keep love strong, pure, and true, and you'll be married a good long time. It worked for your grandfather and me, and here we are 74 years later." Story 81. I hope age gaps receive less hate in this country. Most people over the age of 22 are mature enough to choose who they date. Story 82. My husband is 10.5 years older. It just happened. We met at work, a temporary job for both of us, and just clicked. I had just turned 21. He heard me talk about my favorite video game, and as a gamer, he knew he needed to talk to me. Turns out we had mostly the same interests, similar taste in food, music, movies, and most importantly, games. It just felt natural to be together. In hindsight, I wish I had gotten my own apartment instead of moving directly from my parents' home to live with him. But my home life was not good, and I took the chance to leave. Also, I really loved him and wanted to be with him. We fell into a dynamic where he took care of me, financially and in general. He had lived on his own before and knew how to handle many things, whereas I did not. I went back to school, which he financed. Then I started working, and he had a hard time seeing me as a partner and not just his younger girlfriend that he needed to take care of. We worked through that. He was never controlling, but we fell into a pretty unhealthy dynamic that honestly held us both back for a while. I love my husband. We took our time and got married after 10 years, so we did not rush that. Now I would say we are a very good team. He supports me and I support him. But I would not recommend any 21-year-old move to another city with a partner 10 or more years older. Live on your own. Find your footing as an adult. Be independent. Then move in together. And do not believe that you are so mature. It is the other way around. My husband was pretty much on my level when it came to relationships, which is why we worked out. He was emotionally immature for his age, and I was pretty mature for a 21-year-old. Story 83. I was a 44-year-old male, relatively good-looking and wealthy. She was 29 years old, attractive and intelligent. Story 84. I just showed her my Galaxy Destroyer, and the next thing I knew, I woke up the next day in her bed. Story 85. Hooked up at a wedding. I was a friend of the groom and she was his coworker. I was in my mid-20s and she was in her mid-40s. We spent about 6 months seeing each other when we had time around work commitments. Then one day, I became too busy, and we stopped messaging. It sort of fizzled out. It was good fun though. Neither of us was looking for commitment. We were just having fun. 10 out of 10 would do again. Story 86. My wonderful fiancé is 10 years older than me, and it is the best relationship I have ever had. Story 87. Met through a sports league. I was 17 years older than one and 15 years older than another. Both relationships were great in their own way and made me a better person. I hope they feel the same. Story 88. She was 53, I was 25, and she picked me up after I had gone to get a drink after my second shift. We never had anything serious, just a few casual encounters. Story 89. My last girlfriend and I had a 19-year age gap. I am in my 30s, and she is in her 50s. We were together for 2.5 years. We met at a mutual friend's wedding and just hit it off. We had more in common than you would expect. Ultimately, it did not work out because we were always in different stages of life. However, it was a good relationship overall. Story 90. When I was 20, I dated a man who was 31. I met him at work while on a summer break across the country. Besides the fact that I was not even legal to drink, it was probably one of my most normal dating relationships. We were probably not that far apart in terms of life stages. He was a new doctor and had only been out of medical school for 2 to 3 years. Story 91. Relationships have their own clock. I like to think the more real they are, the less they are affected by society's expectations for timing, where or when to celebrate, who should be in the reception, and so on. Story 92. I was 19. Internet dating was new in 1998. I met a local woman who was in her late 40s and interested in younger men. I learned a few things and had a wonderful weekend. Story 93. We met at work. There was a 20-year gap between us. We have been together for over 13 years. I am 56 years old. Story 94. It was a passing thing. She bartended at a place I found on a whim. At first, I came back because I liked the place, then I was coming back just for her. Came to a swift conclusion, though. After a month or 3 of being a frequent visitor and getting to know her, she told me to stay until close one night and met me in the parking lot. I thought maybe this would be the time we would go back to somebody's house. Instead, it happened right there in the parking lot in the back of her SUV. In the brief moments of conversation afterward, she realized that I was younger than she thought and that she was older than I thought. Somehow, actual age never came up in all our talks. I didn't have any issue with the 20-year age gap, but she did because I was only a year or 2 older than her daughter. I respected her wish for me to no longer go there when she was working, as she felt uncomfortable and awkward. It didn't matter much, as the place closed down about 6 weeks later. Story 95. I dated a great girl 20 years younger than me. There were lots of family squabbles. I do not recommend such a large age difference. I dated another woman who was 13 years younger. We were fine. There were no age issues because I was more active than she was, so it balanced us out. Story 96. I was 18, and he was 30. We met through a coworker. I was deeply insecure and liked the attention. We were together for 4 years. I became sick and tired of feeling like I had grown mentally and emotionally while he was still stuck in his early 20s. He also cheated a lot and was not a good person. He was never going to change. Story 97. I arrived at the restaurant before my wife. When she arrived, the host said, "Your dad is right over there." Story 98. I took an adult education French language class when I was 26. I met a man who was 42. We shared a love of the language and the culture and got along well. We started dating, but it only lasted a few months. The age difference was a bigger issue than I expected, and it was made worse by the fact that I am American and he was not, so there were cultural differences as well. Additionally, he had been divorced for a few years and was looking to get married again. I was not really seeking that at the time. We parted amicably. He was intelligent, worldly, and enjoyable to talk to. We really enjoyed each other's company. No regrets. Story 99. A 50-year-old man and a 30-year-old woman had a relationship that was solely based on sex. That is all it was, and that is how it ended. Story 100. He works in my complex. I am 58 and he is 38. We connect on many levels and enjoy each other's company. Story 101. It happened between me, a 22-year-old male, and my first boss, a 53-year-old male. He groomed me and took my virginity in his office. Story 102. There was a 22-year age gap, and to be honest, she lied. We were just friends, and she did not want to be seen as the oldest woman in the group, so she said she was the same age. In her defense, she looks younger than me. We broke up after I found out, not because of the age gap, but due to the lack of honesty. We rebuilt the friendship after some time and have been married for almost 2 years now. Story 103. I am kinky. I sought out older men because all the younger and same-age men I dated were childish and still played with toys instead of with me. So I will never date any younger or same-age men. My older boyfriend was 55 and I was 34. It was the best relationship ever. I met him on Paltalk voice chat, talked for a year, then the kink began. Here is a great age gap romance video. Story 104. This has happened a few times. The first time I was 21 and he was 39. We met at work in the smoke pit. I thought he was handsome and things went from there. I have also slept with a couple of younger men now that I am in my 30s. I met one at work and we hit it off. I met the other on a fetish and kink website. Fun times all around. Story 105. She was 21 and I was 39. She was young and attractive and apparently she liked older men. By older men, she probably meant a sugar daddy, but I was broke. Of course, she did not have to know that. Story 106. We worked together. She was 46, and I was 22. I was a young man. We flirted a bit, and one day she invited me over. I showed up with beer, and she answered the door naked. We had sex. I came too fast. We laughed. I left. She quit the next week. I have never seen her since. Story 107. I wanted a fun companion. I had met a very interesting motorcyclist a few months earlier. I figured an older man would know his way around romantic relationships. Plus, he is completely adorable. I did not intend to catch feelings. We live together and are very happy. He is 25 years older than I am. Story 108. We were in the same circle of friends. After 4 years, we both ended up single and eventually sat next to each other a lot at our weekly group functions. Then we started talking away from the group. We dated in secret for a few months because we didn't want to hear from the group in case it didn't work out. However, we decided it was going rather well and went public. Friends were totally supportive. That was 14 years ago. We're married now and still in the same group of friends. I am 46 and he is 58. Sometimes it just works. Story 109. When I was 19, I slept with a man twice my age in exchange for cheap rent. Of course, it did not last long. I left once he started showing signs of violence. In hindsight, he might have genuinely been a psychopath, but I have no regrets because it was much better than living with my parents. Story 110. I'm 31. He is 55. We met by chance through work on different shifts and in different departments. I apparently surprised him by asking exactly how old he was, then if he would like to grab a beer sometime. I just got home from spending the last couple of days with him. It's only been about 6 months, but we are talking about moving in together before the holidays. Story 111. My ex is 14 years older than me. We met when I was 24 and she was 38 at work. We just hit it off and the age gap was never really an issue. We had a child together and were together for 8 years. She is still one of my best friends today. Story 112. What do you consider a big gap? 10 plus years? 20 plus years? I have a relationship with someone 8 years younger than me. It happened because we both used to write fanfiction. He left me a comment that I wanted to be clarified, and we have been together for 7 years. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.